Hello, I'm Wilson Bateman. And in the last couple of days, of course, I'm like everybody, I'm watching the news out there, and I'm watching this incident unfold in the Suez Canal, and the ship was released. It's got released, and it looks like things are kind of back to normal, at least in the canal right now. So it's interesting when you start to think about, it got me thinking about incidents on the sea, and it got me thinking a little bit about the cost of complacency. Now, I don't know what the causes of this particular incident are, so I'm not going to play the blame game, but it kind of takes me back to the late 80s. I think it was like 1989 when the Exxon Valdez ran aground in Prince William Sound. And at the time it was like blame everybody. Started off blame Exxon, and then blame Captain Hazelwood. Some people even said he was intoxicated. There's some story about drinking, and all the focus was on Hazelwood, blame Hazelwood. And then as things progressed, it was kind of like, well, still blaming Exxon. They didn't respond in time. Still blaming Hazelwood. And then all of a sudden it was like, blame the Coast Guard. Some people even sort of blamed the state of Alaska. So very much the blame game went on for a long period of time, probably still going on to this day, I guess, if you think about it. But it got me really thinking about complacency, and that's what this video clip is about. It just got me thinking about complacency and confidence, and those are two things that we talk about in the H-files, the human factors that increase the likelihood of error. Now, these aren't complicated ways of looking at safety. We still very much want to focus on traditional stuff, but the idea here is to sort of consider the human factor side of things. And it's interesting with complacency and confidence, because it impacts all of us, not just at work, but in everything that we do.
Pressure and pace. Distraction. Frustration. Human factors that increase the likelihood of error. Error. Mistake. Violation. Discover the H-files today.
And if you think about sort of the problems that are associated with complacency, as an example, mindset, it's not something that you think about. Come on, when do you think about complacency? You think about complacency after the fact, after somebody's hurt, after something gets screwed up, after something goes wrong. Then you start thinking about complacency. You don't have a mindset where we think about complacency up front. It's not what we do unless unless you've gone through some kind of training or you've got some kind of initiative in your organization. You don't think about complacency that way. Matter of fact, the mindset is often, when it comes to complacency, it's not going to happen to me. It might happen to somebody else. It might happen to some other captain. It might happen to some other workplace, but it's not going to happen to me. So one of the things that we try to recognize, try to address when it comes to complacency is mindset. We have to sort of spend some time and think about mindset. And then that sort of takes us to recognition. I mean, how do you recognize complacency? If it's true that you only see it after the fact, are there signs of complacency? Can we see the signs of complacency? And once again, that requires a little knowledge about what complacency is and how it impacts us. So yeah, maybe we can see the signs of complacency. Let's think a little bit about hazard and risk. Sometimes the problem with complacency is we don't see the hazards, or we underestimate, let's say the level of risk. Once again, that mindset thing, it's not going to happen to me. I can remember touring around a large chemical site some years ago. It was all about, it's low probability, high consequence. We got to focus on it. It's low P, high C. Low P, high C. We got to focus on that. And we've got to keep people thinking about those things. Yes, the probability is low, but the consequences are high. So don't become complacent. So when you think about hazard and risk, that plays a big part when it comes to dealing with complacency. Think about autopilot for a second. Maybe I've jumped back to the signs of complacency. I'm on autopilot. Well, we go on autopilot all the time, don't we? I mean, sometimes on the drive home, where are you? You're on autopilot, right? You're in the car, you're driving, but your mind's left the vehicle, it's gone somewhere else. So you're going through some exercise where you're on autopilot. Sometimes I think about errors. I think about those little errors that we continue even to this day to try to say to people, look at the little things, right? It's the little things that you kind of see along the way. They are, they're the signs. But we miss those little things. We suffer the details in a sense. We don't really see them, which creates a problem for us sometimes. So error management is an issue, really, when you start thinking about complacency. If you think about maybe habits, sometimes our habits, what happens to our habits? We've got a habit of performing a task a certain way, and sometimes I ask people, how long? Oh, we've been doing it that way for 30 years. 30 years we've been doing it, and now you're coming along and telling us we need to do something different. Well, the problem is sometimes with habits, what do? We develop shortcuts. And when I think about, when I think about Hazelwood on board that tanker, or when I think about Exxon and how it managed, or the Coast Guard and how they managed those incidents, complacency, there's no question in my mind, complacency was a factor on all parties. And it's, like I said, it's part of human nature. And of course, after something goes wrong, then we can say, yes, complacency costs. So when I think about overconfidence, even if you look at, and I think back, if you look back to the video from even some of the folks that were on the stand, really appeared to be overconfident to me. And even though the incident occurred, it was on somebody else. They were so confident that they didn't do anything wrong. So when you start to look at overconfidence, when you start to think about complacency, when you start to think about mindset, we start to realize there's a lot to look at with complacency. It's not as simple as just saying, hey, sometimes our folks are complacent. So if you recognize complacency in your organization and you want to go a little further, you want to dig a little deeper, then by all means, give me a call. Now don't hang up, this is the advertising part of the video. So visit our website. We do videos, obviously, on complacency. We do webinars. Same thing with our YouTube channel, or reach out by phone. Try the old-fashioned phone call or email, and we may be able to help you deal with complacency in your workplace. So I'm Wilson Bateman. Be safe out there.